Stepping into the spotlight of Hollywood can sometimes feel like stepping onto a different planet, a place where legends are born, careers are launched, and sometimes towering giants emerge from the most unlikely origins. Today, let's talk about one such giant, both in physical stature and in the size of his heart, Michael Clarke Duncan. He was one of those rare performers who could light up a room with a wide grin, wrap an arm around you like a friendly bear, and knock out a deeply emotional, unforgettable performance the next minute. For fans all around the world, he's best remembered for roles that packed a punch, both literally in action flicks and emotionally in the dramas that made us cry. But the road from the south side of Chicago to red carpet premieres is as full of struggle as it is success. In this story, we'll trace the path of a young man whose mother never let him play football, who once dug ditches to make ends meet, who dabbled in the chaos of disco demolition night, and who ultimately became one of Hollywood's most recognized and beloved figures. Back in Chicago, at a time when the city's sports teams were forging myths of their own, Michael Clarke Duncan came into this world. He grew up in a single-parent household raised by his mother, Jean Duncan. She worked as a house cleaner. Hard, honest work that's all too often overlooked. And she did it to support Michael and his sister Judy after their father stepped out of the picture. Growing up without a father figure might have put a chip on his shoulder or cultivated a hunger in him to excel. Whichever the case, Michael was never shy about dreaming big. Many young boys growing up in Chicago fantasize about wearing the jersey of the Bears, stepping onto the gridiron, and hearing the roar of the fans. Michael was no exception. But Jean Duncan, worried about her son's potential injuries, simply refused to give the green light on her big boy entering a sport known for its punishing collisions. As family lore goes, that forced him to pivot to a different dream, one that eventually brought him to the bright lights of Hollywood. He briefly attended Alcorn State University, enrolling in a communication program. At first glance, that might seem a curious path for a future actor, but it actually makes sense. Communication skills, stage presence, and the ability to express yourself are cornerstones of acting. Sadly, dreams sometimes face roadblocks. In Michael's case, his mother's failing health forced him to drop out and return to provide for the family. That sense of loyalty wasn't just something he performed in front of a camera later in life. It was a key part of who he was from the beginning. His mother's illness meant he had to step up in a far more pressing role, breadwinner. At that point, life demanded something far more immediate than the bright promise of an acting career. So there he was, a man boasting an imposing stature, 6 feet 5 inches tall, tipping the scales at around 315 pounds, suddenly digging ditches for the People's Gas Company. On the weekends and nights, he took shifts as a bouncer at various Chicago clubs. Even in a nightlife scene where bouncers are expected to look intimidating, you can imagine he still stood out. That size would become part of his ticket to success down the line. But back then it was just a way to ensure there was money on the table and bills got paid. If you encountered him at a club door in the Windy City, you probably remember a looming figure who could toss out troublemakers effortlessly. But there was more to him than muscle. He was also known for his surprisingly kind spirit and sense of humor, offering a big smile to genuine partygoers. A slice of comedic chaos soon found Michael in 1979 at Comiskey Park, the home of the Chicago White Sox during the infamous disco demolition night. Most of us have that one bizarre event in our youth that we look back on, half embarrassed, half thrilled to have been a part of. For Michael, it was this night. The premise was straightforward, but a bit off the wall. Blow up disco records in between a doubleheader. True to the name, it turned into a riotous scene that ended with a storm of rowdy fans charging onto the field. Apparently, Michael was among the first wave of people surging onto the diamond, sliding into third base, a moment that must have thrilled him in an "I can't believe we're doing this" sort of way. At some point, he lost a silver belt buckle to the scrambling crowd and, ironically, ended up helping himself to a baseball bat from the dugout. Maybe not the proudest shining example of sportsmanship, but definitely a memory for the ages. It was a perfect cameo in a city that loves its baseball drama. Eventually, though, the lure of Hollywood's bright lights called. Michael had dreams that Chicago's nightlife scene just wasn't big enough to fulfill. Packing up and heading to Los Angeles, he looked for a way, any way really, to crack into show business. You can almost picture him strolling down Sunset Boulevard in the 1980s or early 90s, dwarfed only by the palm trees, hustling for opportunities to work in commercials or background roles. To make ends meet and to network in that unpredictable city, he used what he had, his build. He took gigs as a bodyguard, a job that was both physically demanding and provided an up-close look at big stars. Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Jamie Foxx, LL Cool J, these were just some of the names Michael protected. It's ironic to think that later, many of these same stars would stand alongside him at parties or on sets, welcoming him as a colleague rather than an employee. For a while, Michael also worked for the Notorious B.I.G. But when the rapper was tragically killed in 1997, Michael took it as a sign. Enough of standing on the sidelines and watching other people's careers flourish. It was time to pivot and go all in on acting. His earliest film appearances fittingly often saw him cast as a bouncer or tough guy. You can see him pop up in Bulworth or A Night at the Roxbury if you freeze frame the right moment. While these were small appearances, each built that stack of credits that told producers, hey, you need a big, intimidating guy with presence? Here's your man. But it was Armageddon in 1998, directed by none other than Michael Bay, that propelled Michael into the real mainstream. In that world-saving ensemble, he took on the role of Bear, one of the oil drillers turned astronauts. The production was high-octane and star-studded, featuring folks like Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck. Michael's comedic timing and genuine charm shone through even in the midst of the film's explosive madness. On set, he forged a particularly important friendship with Bruce Willis. This camaraderie would alter the trajectory of Michael's life in the best possible way. With Bruce's help and encouragement, Michael got the chance to audition for what would become his signature role, John Coffey, in The Green Mile, 1999. Frank Darabont, who directed the Stephen King adaptation, was looking for an actor who could embody immense strength and formidable presence, but also deliver overwhelming tenderness. That balancing act was tough. John Coffey is essentially a gentle giant, a man with supernatural healing powers on death row for a crime he didn't commit. Enter Michael Clarke Duncan. The performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor and a Golden Globe nod. Suddenly the world saw that behind that imposing physique, there was an actor of extraordinary depth. In a film starring Tom Hanks, where Hanks himself was in top form, it takes a special kind of talent to stand out. But Michael managed it, leaving viewers weeping and enthralled in equal measure. In Hollywood, once the right role pops, the offers come flooding in. This was the case for Michael after The Green Mile. He began appearing in a variety of genres, from comedies to action to sci-fi. In The Whole Nine Yards, 2000, he joined Bruce Willis again for a comedic crime romp. Then there was See Spot Run, 2001, a family-friendly comedy that introduced him to a younger audience. That same year, Tim Burton tapped him for Planet of the Apes. What kind of range does it take to appear in both comedic fluff and a Tim Burton reimagining of a sci-fi classic? quite a lot, and Michael handled both skillfully. Then came The Scorpion King, 2002, alongside Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, where he got to flex his action hero side. The film was big, loud, full of swords and desert battles, precisely the kind of environment where his physicality could shine. But perhaps one of the more talked about castings was when Michael stepped into the shoes of Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, for the 2003 film Daredevil. Traditionally, Kingpin was portrayed in the comics as a massive white man. So, casting Michael Clarke Duncan raised some eyebrows among fans. Yet, from a purely physical standpoint, who else could have sold that character's mix of intimidation, cunning, and borderline superhuman strength better than a 6'5", 300-plus pound actor? Still, to achieve the Kingpin's famously bulky frame, he intentionally gained about 40 pounds. This was no small task, and he did it because he believed in portraying the character as faithfully as possible. The result was a Kingpin with presence, and one who was surprisingly well received, even if the film itself garnered mixed reviews. By 2006, though, Michael was less keen on regaining that extra weight if a future chance to reprise Kingpin had come along. Health and physical comfort were starting to become more of a priority. In fact, health would play a major role in his life, particularly as the years went on. By 2009, Michael had completely cut meat from his diet, embracing vegetarianism. It was a surprising turn for a man widely known for his steak-sized arms, but Michael credited this lifestyle change with increasing his strength and stamina, not to mention the overall feeling of well-being. He even appeared in an ad campaign for PETA, highlighting that going vegetarian doesn't mean you lose muscle. He used himself as the living proof. There's something particularly memorable about seeing a man of that size, typically associated with protein-heavy diets, championing a plant-based lifestyle. The mid-2000s also saw him delivering a host of memorable performances. In 2005, he took a role in The Island, another Michael Bay flick, and also showed up in Sin City as Manute, a criminal enforcer with a calm, menacing demeanor. For a storyline drenched in noir, violence, and style, casting Michael was a masterstroke. Roger Ebert singled him out in The Island, praising the genuine terror Michael brought to his limited scenes. Then in 2006, he joined Will Ferrell's comedic playground in Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, as Lucius Washington. People loved seeing him shift from serious, fearsome roles to comedic ones that let him cut loose. Jump forward to 2009, and he was in Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li, taking on the role of Balrog, one of the game franchise's iconic characters. Though the movie didn't exactly set box office records on fire, it gave fans of the Street Fighter universe something to talk about. That same year, in The Slammin' Salmon, he played a comically eccentric former boxer turned restaurateur, a comedic role that let him show off more of the comedic timing that made him so endearing. But if there's one facet of Michael Clarke Duncan that sometimes overshadowed even his acting skills, it was that voice, deep, resonant, and instantly recognizable. Voice acting was a natural arena for him. In 2003, he contributed to Disney's Brother Bear, voicing Tug, the leader of the Bears. The movie's success eventually led to a sequel, Brother Bear 2, 2006, and he returned for that as well. Then in 2008, he joined the cast of Kung Fu Panda as the voice of Commander Vachir, part of DreamWorks' comedic take on martial arts culture. He also voiced Kilowog in Green Lantern, 2011, standing alongside Ryan Reynolds. Any time a major studio needed someone with a baritone that rumbled like thunder, they knew exactly who to call. So it's no wonder that beyond movies, he also lent his voice to TV series like Lunatics Unleashed an animated spin on the Looney Tunes universe, and took part in promotional commercials like Quiznos. Gamers also got to experience his talent in titles like Demon Stone, SOCOM 2 U.S. Navy SEALs, The Suffering, Ties That Bind, Saints Row, Soldier of Fortune, and God of War 2, in which he provided the voice for the Titan Atlas. He even stepped back into the role of Kingpin for Spider-Man, the new animated series. There's a certain thrill in hearing that unmistakable voice come through your TV or gaming headset, letting you know that Michael Clarke Duncan was in the building. He wasn't limited to big screen or voice performances, though. Michael also guest starred in episodes of TV shows ranging from kid-friendly sitcoms to serious dramas. His appearances in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and CSI NY added a dash of variety to his resume. He popped up in the second season premiere of Chuck, playing Mr. Colt, and even graced 2 episodes of 2.5 Men. That latter cameo is a testament to how comedic he could be, especially when interacting with leading comedic actors. And for fans of the crime procedural meets comedic banter style of Bones, Michael made an unforgettable impression. As Leo Knox in an April 2011 episode, this character then became his first ever starring role in a TV series, The Finder, a spin-off that centered on the quirky, gifted Walter Sherman, Jeff Stoltz, and his associates. Michael's Leo Knox was the moral, philosophical center of the show, a likable attorney turned bar owner who guided the main character. The show was short-lived, but it proved Michael's capacity to carry a series. Sadly, The Finder would also become a posthumous tribute, as one of the episodes of Bones in Season 8 was dedicated to him after he passed away. He was also a favorite guest on The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. You might recall that unique banter between Craig and Michael, Craig with his playful Scottish sarcasm, and Michael with his easy, booming laugh. In May 2012, the show filmed in Scotland for a week, and Michael joined as a guest. Over the years, he appeared on Ferguson's show a total of 18 times, an impressive run that reflected not just his availability but the genuine rapport they had. After Michael's death, Ferguson aired tributes that showed just how much affection he and the staff had for their big, lovable friend. Reruns of the Scotland episodes later opened with a heartfelt dedication to Michael, reminding fans that behind the camera's comedic veneer, real relationships form. In his personal life, as his star rose, Michael's relationships also became public interest. By the time of his death, he was dating reality television star Omarosa Manigault, known for her appearances on The Apprentice and other reality shows. Their relationship would become a point of contention after he passed. His family alleged that Omarosa manipulated his final days, changed his will, and took advantage of the situation. The family also claimed she misrepresented aspects of their engagement and sold his personal belongings without informing them. In 2013, Omarosa appeared on the All-Star Celebrity Apprentice, playing for Michael's favorite charity, the Sue Duncan Children's Center. During the second episode, she won $40,000 for the charity, a gesture that indicated some level of continued connection to Michael's memory. But the controversies around the will lingered in the media. It was a messy, complicated chapter, but it underscored the depth of emotion, money, and heartbreak that can surface after someone beloved passes. Aside from the controversies, Michael had personal passions that might surprise fans. One was his training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the Gracie Academy in Torrance, California. Most fans probably never would have guessed this big teddy bear was also adept on the mat. He even held a purple belt, demonstrating the discipline and technique he carried beyond mere weightlifting or gym routines. But tragedy struck in mid-2012 when Michael suffered a heart attack on July 13th. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and for a while there was hope he'd pull through. He left intensive care by early August, but never fully recovered. The medical updates that trickled out were guarded. Then, on September 3, 2012, Michael Clarke Duncan passed away from respiratory failure. He was only 54, far too young by any standard, especially for such a lively, warm presence. The outpouring of grief from fans and colleagues was immediate. Social media lit up with tributes. People recounted stories of meeting him and being stunned by his kindness. This wasn't just a star gone too soon. It was a gentle soul who felt like a friend, even if you only knew him through movies. 1 week later, on September 10th, a private funeral was held in Los Angeles. Among those in attendance was Tom Hanks, who had built a touching bond with Michael during the filming of The Green Mile. You can imagine Tom's presence there as something more profound than just a professional courtesy. These two had shared one of the most emotionally powerful movie sets in recent memory, forging a bond that went beyond the typical Hollywood handshake. Michael's final resting place is at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, a cemetery that's become a who's who of showbiz luminaries. So, let's remember them as the chapters of a story about a big-hearted man who stumbled onto the field at Disco Demolition Night in Chicago, who once guarded the likes of Will Smith and LL Cool J, who soared to critical acclaim as John Coffey, and who gave comedic and action performances that continue to bring audiences joy. Let's appreciate the times he showed us that being big doesn't always mean being scary, that sometimes it means having an even bigger capacity for kindness and emotion. Let's remember that voice, thunderous, smooth, comforting. And let's hold on to the fact that sometimes a no from your mother about playing football can shift your life in an entirely new and magical direction. From that first moment sliding into third base at Comiskey Park to the final goodbye at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, his was an American journey that soared higher than any NASA shuttle in Armageddon and was more poignant than any single tear shed in the Green Mile. It's no wonder that fans still light up at the mention of his name. He gave us reason to believe in gentle giants, to admire a man who by all accounts was just as nice off-screen as the humble, soulful heroes he occasionally portrayed on it. And if by chance you find yourself channel surfing late one night and stumble upon an old talk show appearance of his, listen closely to that laugh. You'll hear the echoes of the best kind of stardom, one anchored in humility, kindness, and a genuine love for the art of entertaining. That's the memory we carry for Michael Clarke Duncan, a memory of a man who was big enough to fill any screen, yet tender enough to fill our hearts, reminding us that behind every giant stands a dream, and sometimes that dream changes the entire world around it.